A bit of a treat this morning with pioneers of the punk new wave disco scene in New York City in the 1970s. Over the years, they've sold over 40 million albums and enjoyed countless smash hits right around the world. Let's catch up with Deborah Harry and Chris Stein of Blondie. In 1982, Blondie was on top of the world. Then everything collapsed in just 6 months. Chris Stein was dying from a mystery disease that doctors couldn't identify. Debbie Harry was secretly feeding him heroin in the hospital. Their latest album flopped so badly it nearly ended their careers. But the real truth was darker. Harry finally revealed what actually destroyed the band that summer. And it wasn't just the illness or drugs. It was a betrayal so deep that it took 15 years for them to speak again. She was born Angela Trimble on July 1, 1945 in Miami, the result of an affair between two former childhood sweethearts, who had found each other again too late. Her mother only learned he was already married after she was pregnant. In post-war America, that kind of scandal left few options for a young single woman. Just 3 months after giving birth, Catherine Peters gave her daughter up for adoption. But 3 months was long enough for a baby to recognize her mother's voice, her scent, her heartbeat. Debbie Harry would later describe it as a kind of invisible fog that followed her through life. A trauma buried too deep to fully understand but impossible to ignore. She was adopted by Richard and Catherine Harry, conservative couple in Hawthorne, New Jersey. They owned a small gift shop and lived what looked like an ordinary suburban life. They renamed her Deborah and Harry and raised her in a modest house filled with rules and expectations. Her father worked as a salesman. Her mother stayed home. They wanted their daughter to follow the usual path. Finish school, find a husband, settle down close by. But even as a little girl, Debbie felt like she didn't quite belong. Their world was calm and predictable. Hers was full of noise, color, and movement. Just across the bridge was New York City, and somehow even then she could feel it calling her. When she was 4 years old, her adoptive parents told her she had been adopted. They explained it gently, making it sound special. And at first that's how she felt, unique, chosen. But the more she thought about it, the more questions began to form. Why had her birth other given her up? What kind of person was she? Debbie began to drift into fantasy. She imagined herself as the secret daughter of Marilyn Monroe. She looked at Monroe and saw someone who wore pain like silk. Someone beautiful but broken in ways no one could fully see. Debbie saw herself in that mirror. As she grew older, the tension between her inner world and the life her parents wanted for her only deepened. Her mother encouraged her to be ladylike, neat and conventional. But Debbie was drawn to the strange and the wild. She spent hours drawing, writing poetry, and daydreaming in the nearby woods with her dog. She played in the park and built imaginary kingdoms, dreaming of music, art, and fashion. She never quite fit into the world around her. And maybe she didn't want to. School wasn't much better. Her natural red hair made her stand out, and that became a target. The teasing and bullying got so bad that by the time she was 14 she started bleaching her hair. Marilyn had blonde hair. Debbie wanted it too. She wasn't just trying to change how she looked. She was trying to become someone else. Someone strong, someone untouchable. Music started creeping into her life. Through the radio. She didn't collect records the way other kids did, but she was always flipping through stations looking for something that hit the right nerve. A friend had a big record collection and Debbie would sit for hours listening to everything, absorbing the sounds. She watched American Bandstand, learned the dances, and lost herself in the rhythm. Her favorite part was the slow dancing, the closeness, the tension, the passion. These moments planted seeds she didn't even realize were growing. But alongside the music and the dreaming, darker things took root. When she was just 8, she saw a man expose himself to her. Years later, she described how that moment made her feel like a fly caught in a spider's web. A teenager started stalking her home. These experiences left a quiet, gnawing fear in her, one that she carried for years. She was shy and dreamy on the outside, but inside, something was always trembling. Despite all this, she still showed up for the traditional things. Girl Scouts, church choir, even majorettes. Her parents were strict Episcopalians and kept her involved in everything they could. But none of it fit. While she sang hymns in church, she was dreaming of dark lipstick and loose sweaters worn backwards. She already knew she wasn't built for suburbia. She didn't want a white picket fence or a man with a tie. She wanted New York. By the time she was a teenager, she didn't bother hiding it anymore. She hated the town. She hated the rules. And she made no secret of her dream to escape. She wanted to live in the city, be an artist, and do something bold. She thought part of her restlessness came from being adopted. With no blood ties to her parents, nothing felt locked in. She could become anything. In 1965, after just 1 year at Centenary College in Hackettstown, where she'd been studying art, she dropped out. Some say she earned a degree, but others confirm she left without finishing. What mattered is that she walked away from it all. She was 20 and Manhattan was waiting. Her parents were horrified. But for Debbie, it was the first real step toward the life she'd always imagined. In 1966, she got a job as a secretary at the BBC's New York office. By day, she sat behind a desk. But at night, she became someone else entirely. She was go-go dancing in a Union City club, twisting and spinning inside cages for $50 a night while men shouted and stared. It was rough, exhausting work and sometimes humiliating. But it taught her how to take up space, how to keep going no matter what, how to own a room even when turned against you. A year later, in 1967, she joined her first real band, Wind in the Willows. It was a psychedelic folk group with a strange, dreamy sound and a mix of instruments that included flute, tambura, and bassoon. They got signed to Capitol Records and released an album in 1968. It barely charted number 195 and faded quickly. The band broke up after just 1 year, but the experience was gold. She learned how to record, how to work in a studio, how to control her voice. Their producer, Artie Kornfeld, would go on to co-create Woodstock. That same summer, in the thick of the summer of love, Debbie took LSD in Central Park. It wasn't just a trip, it was a turning point. She said later that cracked her brain open, rewired how she saw art and life and everything in between. Like so many artists of the era, she used psychedelics to break away from the rules that had always pressed against